All right, CNT120, Chapter 2, our last little chunk here on operating procedures. All right, so now we're going to move into a different set of documentation. The first set of documentation was about the network and the connections and the ports and that sort of thing. We have a whole nother set of documentation that needs to happen, including things like inventory management, IP addressing, vendors, policies, procedures, that sort of thing. So one of the first things they mention is your inventory management, and they mentioned that this concept of a system life cycle. The system life cycle is the process of designing, implementing, maintaining an entire network, including the removal and disposal. Well, they mention it briefly. I don't need you to know this graphic, but I wanted to show this to you to give you an idea. Here's a system development life cycle showing the initiation, the concept. Hey, we want to put a new server in to do blah. Planning that to happen, what requirements, what kind of bandwidth, what kind of processing, what kind of storage, blah, blah, blah. Designing it, developing, maybe getting a test server, putting it in, trying it out, then actually the integration and testing it, giving this a whirl, trying it, and then planning the implementation, and then operating and maintaining it for the next year or two. And then as that project ends or we need to replace it, how am I going to get rid of this? What am I going to do to dispose of this and or start this cycle over for the replacement of? Okay, so as I'm dealing with, as they say here, the system life cycle, planning for a new part of a building and what switches and routers and things I need, and then once it's in place, maintaining it, and then also starting to think about, okay, if we're going to be here 10 years, when do I need to start thinking about replacing these pieces of equipment and start getting on some kind of plan that I know it's coming, that I can do that. That is your system life cycle. And then eventually the disposing of this gear, because you can't just throw it in the dumpster. This actually has to be done and disposed of correctly. And you might even need to pay for the electronic disposal of or donation of, if you will. Another part of my operating is inventory management. Inventory management is just that, taking inventory of all your gear and then recording it in some manner that I know where everything is in my network, including switches, routers, workstations, printers, IP phones, all of those things. So to do that, that is usually maintained in some kind of spreadsheet or database. And it's going to contain things like, well, if your hardware, all of your router switches, that sort of thing, you're going to have lists of routers and their model numbers and serial numbers, where they're located, who do I contact for supporting that, switches, servers, and then out to computers, desktop computers, IP phones, printers, that sort of thing. All that needs to be documented somehow. If it's a small company, you can go by with a spreadsheet. If it's a larger place, you might actually have a spreadsheet that you fill out and then go back and plug it in the database. You might even use little stickers that you put on and scan with a barcode scanner. And when you do that, plug in information on that so you have it documented. Think about all the different types of technology you have in a place like a hospital. There needs to be a way to somehow document all of that. Meanwhile, you have to document all the software too. What versions of things do you have out there running? Who is my vendor? What's my license for this thing? Who do I contact if I need to support this? All of this documentation is necessary, and I'll make a quick joke. When you're one of the new guys in a place, guess what you're going to do? More than likely, you're going to end up walking around with a spreadsheet at some point and double checking, yes, this printer's still here, yes, it's still working, yes, it does match what's on my inventory. On to the next room, okay? Hopefully in a couple of years down the road, you can laugh and go, yeah, Mr. Brown was right, and a couple of years after that, you can be handing that duty off to somebody else that's new in the team. Anyway, that's part of inventory management. But all of this documentation is going to help with simplifying upgrades down the road, because then you'll know, yeah, we do have a quantity of 22 of these printers out there that are going to need to be upgraded. So our plan is we're going to get a price on these, blah, 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 and then you can start phasing in that upgrade. All of this is called, in many cases, asset management, inventory management, asset management. There is actually software programs out to help with all this. You can actually run a program where it starts gathering all your desktops and what software and things are on them, that you don't have to physically go to every single machine and learn what's on there. There is stuff out there to help with this, and also ways that you can plug this information in too. There's all kinds of products out there. They also remind us when I'm dealing with this about some labeling and naming conventions. Again, we mentioned before about color-coded cables. Maybe even you use some color-coded tags too. I need to label all my ports and jacks, and I'm going to use things like portable label makers to do that so that I have good labels and everything. Absolutely. And it reminds you there about using maybe standard abbreviations for things. Yes, have some kind of convention that you use that you know 1A is maybe this particular closet in the building, and these are, certain rooms in the building or whatever. Okay, so you need to have some kind of standard naming convention for all this. And this is basically what they say here. If you can't fit everything on the label, maybe make a diagram. Use some names or labels that are descriptive, or some kind of naming convention that everybody understands. And that's what they're showing here with a little diagram. If it doesn't all fit, you can start labeling on a diagram what all of these are and what they go to. Last little part, they talk about some business documents that you run into. Again, I'm going to chalk this up to familiarity. Just for familiarity's sake, recognize what these are, because you'll run into them. You'll run into RFPs, requests for proposals. This is a request sent out to a vendor saying, hey, we would like a certain thing from you. Give us your best price or best estimate on doing that. And it actually is a formal document that's sent out saying, hey, we would like a cost or a proposal from you to implement a new blah, install a new blah. Okay. An MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, is basically like a documents the intention. It's kind of like the beginning of a legal document, beginning of a plan that you have. Hey, we have a memorandum of understanding with this company that they're going to come in and replace all of our printers for us, or whatever it happens to be. And this is the beginning of. Now, I pulled this out as this was actually a bargaining agreement for a pay raise at a school district. But you see, it is kind of like the beginning of a legal document. This is what our plan is going to be. We sat around the table and planned it, so we're going to document it. Then we'll actually have the legal document drawn up when we have time. SOW, a statement of work. This documents a detail that must be completed for a particular project. So this would delineate for our vendor what they must do, when they must do that, what tasks they need to do, and what kind of timeline we're dealing with, what should be done from them. Maybe it is you're going to come in and tear out all the old cabling, you're going to put in all the new cabling, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Service level agreement. This is a legally binding contract for service from a particular vendor. Example, this might be the service provided by an ISP. What sort of bandwidth are you going to get from your ISP? What kind of response time you're going to get with a problem? That sort of thing. So to define all of those, there's even a mean time to restore, latency, jitter, those sorts of things. What is acceptable as your service level agreement that you're paying them every month for? Master License Agreement, MLA. This is almost like a big license for, instead of going to the store and buying 10 copies of Microsoft Office blah, you buy one giant license from Microsoft that says you may install this on 1,000 machines, if you will. So this grants a license from the creator to a third party, to a school or something, for the purposes of putting in all of their equipment. So again, this would be a master license agreement of like, this is what's allowed to get done for so long and so many devices and that sort of thing. One of the last things I mentioned is change management. As I need to change things, okay, well at home, if you're at home and you want to upgrade your system, you just kind of get a little game plan together of like, okay, I'm going to back my data up and then I'll replace the hard drive today because I have tomorrow if I need to fix it, blah, blah, blah. When a larger company, it's not quite that simple. I need to have maybe a bigger plan and more people involved, because if I do an upgrade to a server and it goes south, it could affect a lot of the business of your company. So I need to have a plan for dealing with this. One of the first things they talk about is software is a patch. Well, patch is just that. It's going to correct a bug or close a vulnerability or add a minor enhancement to a particular type of software. And in a company, you probably have somebody that's responsible for researching these, downloading them, testing it on a test machine, finding out what it's doing, and then maybe making a little plan for, okay, we're going to do this patch update on blah day to all the 100 machines or 1,000 machines that we have. And these are little periodic updates that come along. Fairly common. We all kind of deal with those almost on a weekly basis. But in a company, you want to have somebody that's kind of monitoring this and doing a little test run and planning it. An upgrade is something that is major to a software package. I use the example of like a service pack update. If you think back to your some of your Windows updates that have come along, Service Pack 2 or whatever, that's a pretty major change to the operating system. And some of you might have remembered different ones along the years caused big problems. So in a company, when you're dealing with 1,000 computers, again, you need to have somebody working on that, downloading it, trying it on a test machine and going, ooh, whoa, that didn't work. We're going to wait on that. Or it did work, okay, but it takes an hour to download and install, so we need a game plan to get all 1,000 machines done on this. That is an upgrade. That is an upgrade. That needs to be planned. With all of that, I need a fallback plan in case something does not work. It's called a rollback or back leveling or downgrading. This is the process of rolling back something that did not work. Maybe you have a new driver or a driver that gets updated and it actually causes something to fail and no longer work. Maybe a video driver, a network driver, whatever. You need a process to be able to roll that back and use the existing one so that you can restore functionality until you have time to dig into it deeper. They remind us about general steps for change of software. You don't allow things to automatically be done. You got to do it yourself and try it. Determine whether it is necessary. Somebody's going to research this, check out compatibility effects. They're going to try it on a test machine or something like that. Determine whether it needs to be done to everybody or just a small group. And then schedule that and plan a maintenance window. Let everybody know what day it's going to occur and when it's going to occur and how it's going to occur. Okay, before you leave tonight, shut your machine off. In the morning when you turn it on, blah window is going to show up and it's going to download and it's going to install. It's not a big deal, blah, blah, blah. Let everybody know that is occurring on a certain time. Notify appropriate personnel of that, like I just said, and then back up your current system. Prevent users from accessing that during the change. Keep instructions handy, maybe even send people instructions as a just in case. Implement and then re-enable the system if it's a server you're bringing online or whatever, and then inform personnel it's changed and record all that. Record what you did in case you need to come back to that another time or another site. Maybe you need to come back to it for another site. Reversing a software upgrade, we actually touched on this a little bit, back leveling or going back if you need to. You need a plan of action in case you have to go that route. And this actually shows you here some options you can do for system patches, upgrades, and so forth that you might need to roll back on your system. Last but not least, you got to document all this stuff. You need to, in some places, you might actually have to submit a change request of like, hey, this is the change we're going to do. Follow the procedures. I might actually have to indicate the project manager or change coordinator that this is going to be done, provide additional documentation, and then indicate this change has occurred. And then we'll update the documentation of maps and IP schemes and that sort of thing on your network. So there's a little bit about some changes that might occur in a network or how you might do them in a network. And again, each place is a little bit different on how they handle it, but there usually is some kind of process you have to go through to make a particular change on a network. And it is not just a simple go in and do it yourself. It's usually a team approach. Okay, this needs to happen, so therefore we're going to make sure this happens, and it's a team approach. That way everybody's on board with what's going on. And there's the last little piece of Chapter 2.